What's up, everybody? It's Mark again, and welcome back to Swamp and Stomp. If you've been watching our channel for a while, you've probably seen that we like to use e-bikes while we're hunting. But we understand that for the average person, that might not be an option because they are pretty expensive. So if you've been wanting to get an e-bike, but you don't want to spend all the money, this video is for you. We are going to be building an e-bike. We're going to save a ton of money, and I'm going to show you how I do it. Let's get into it. Dude, that is a big deer.
And he didn't even go 30 yards.
Oh my God. That was the first buck I've ever shot.
Woo, what a rush.
Money. That deer is dead. Tagged out, baby.
You shot one?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
I saw him go down. So when it comes to e-bikes, there are three different types of motors that can propel your e-bike. You've got a direct drive hub motor, you've got a geared hub motor, and you've got a mid-drive motor. Now today's bike we're going to be putting together is going to be a mid-drive, and it has a bunch of advantages compared to a hub drive motor, which is what my old one is. This is a geared hub drive. I've also had a direct hub drive on this same bike before. I can get into the details of what the differences are and what the advantages are, but that's not the point of this video. So I'll probably make another video after I've finished building this mid-drive bike, comparing between the two and showing what some of the differences are. So once I do put that video together, I'm gonna link it right up there. If you don't see a link yet, it's because I haven't done it yet. But if you see a link, click it and go check it out. So the first thing that you're gonna need to build an e-bike is you're gonna need a bike to put the kit onto. Because basically the way that this works is we're using a conversion kit to turn a regular bike into an e-bike. So in this particular case, I want this bike to be a fat tire e-bike. You might have a different idea in mind. You might not need the fat tires, but if you're gonna be hunting, especially in Florida, or really anywhere, I think the fat tire bike is a much better option for hunting purposes. So the first thing I did, because I'm trying to save money, is I went on Facebook Marketplace and I found this bike. Now when it comes to Facebook Marketplace, typically speaking, the deals that are really good go really fast. So you gotta be on there regularly with your money ready to go and ready to go pick it up. I think I was looking at Marketplace for like 2 weeks, checking it multiple times a day, looking for a good deal. Finally, this one popped up, and you can see it's in really good condition. Like, you know, it was always kept inside. Somebody was using it to commute back and forth to work. But I think I got it for 200 bucks. This is a Mongoose Malus. It's a steel frame, very simple bike. And I'm pretty sure that once upon a time, when this thing was brand new, I think they go for about 400 bucks. So for 200 bucks, it was a great deal. You can definitely get cheaper ones than that. It kind of depends on where you live and what's available. But just pay attention to your marketplace and you should be able to find yourself a good deal like this. All right, before we get into the build, guys, I just wanted to let you know that when I bought all the things to do this conversion, I bought all the parts from Varstrom.com. I've searched a bunch of different websites to find the best deals, and Varstrom not only had the best deals, but it was also just the easiest to use. Like, they have a cool feature where you basically select what kit you want. So like this one was a 48 volt, 750 watt mid-drive kit, and then it just allows you to select the different options that go with that kit. That way you know that you're getting a full kit and everything that you need to convert your bike, so you don't end up with a bunch of parts and then realize you're missing something and have to order something else. So if you're thinking about doing this, go check out Varstrom.com. It's honestly the easiest way to do it. So once you have your bike, then you got to think about all the things that you need to replace. And in this particular case, a lot of the accessories that are on there are kind of useless. Like, for instance, this gear shifter sucks. The derailleur is probably fine for now, but I'm, expecting to have to replace that in the future. But this gear shifter, like, it doesn't even really work. The brakes are fine. This seat is okay, but I'll probably replace that because it's a cheap and easy thing to do. On the other side here, let me pick it all up. On the other side here, this is the kickstand that comes with it. This tiny little foot is not going to be any good when you're on soft ground. So I'm probably going to get a bigger kickstand so that when I try to park this thing in the mud, it's not just going to tip over. Oh, and it's of course going to need a rack for me to carry stuff. It's going to need a big back rack. So we're going to get something really large that I can put, like a whole tree stand on or whatever I need to. You might be tempted to put a rack on the front. Don't do it. Trust me, I've done it before. It makes your steering like way heavier. You're never going to actually carry anything up there, so don't do it. And then the last thing I might change is the front fork, especially if you're riding off-road a lot. These fat tire bikes, you can let a bit of air out so that you got a little bit of cushion in the front there, but it definitely helps to have a nice suspension fork. So we may end up changing that, but for the initial build, I'm not going to worry about that part just yet. All right, so in order to install this mid-drive kit, this is the motor right here. And this bar right here actually mounts to the bike through what they call the bottom bracket. And the bottom bracket is where normally your pedals attach. This tube that goes across right here. Now, in order for us to do that, we first have to remove everything that's in there right now. And then this one is just going to slide right through it, and the pedals are going to attach on either side of this. Now, the real benefit to using this type of motor is that the power is going to be going to the back wheel through the chain, which means that I can use the gears with the bike. I can use the gears through the motor, whereas during a hub drive motor, it's direct drive to the back wheels, so you can't use those gears. So if you run into, like, for instance, you're towing something like a deer in a cart behind you, or you're going uphill, you only get whatever torque output that motor can put to the wheel. Whereas with one of these, it torques through the gear system, so you can put it to a low gear and get a lot more out of that motor. Anyway, I got this. This is a Bafang BBSO2 kit, which is their mid-drive kit, and it comes in a few different sizes. There's like a 78 millimeter, which is what you would use on the bottom bracket of your typical kind of mountain bike. But for a fat tire bike, that bottom bracket is a lot wider. So there's a 100 millimeter kit, which is what we have here, and there's also a 120 millimeter kit. Typically, the bottom bracket of a fat tire bike is going to be either 100 millimeters or 120. Well, for some stupid reason that nobody understands, the Malus, or the Mongoose Malus, has a 110 millimeter bottom bracket, which meant that I either need to use the 100 millimeter and cut some of that bottom bracket tube off of the bike, or get the 120 millimeter kit and get a spacer to fill up the space. I decided to go with the 100 millimeter, and that means that I'm actually going to have to cut part of this bottom bracket off. So we're going to take this whole thing apart, and then we're going to take some measurements and decide how we want to make this work. So first, let's get this thing stripped. I don't think that thing's ever been taken off. There it goes. All right. I thought it would. Okay. It's an interesting style bottom bracket. Alright, I finally got this thing loose. I had to use this really big wrench to basically use it as a pry bar. So I put that on there, slip that through, and I was able to get enough leverage to pull this bottom bracket out. Alright. And there you have it. We have a clear bottom bracket. And just to show you the problem, we can slide this through. That's in the way, but you slide that through. But what you run into is on the other side, there's not much thread sticking out. Just a tiny little bit. That's the problem. So, in order to remedy that, we're gonna have to cut a little bit off of that bottom bracket. All right, little PSA. This next part of the video, you won't have to worry about if you bought a different e-bike. For some reason, I don't know why, but this Mongoose Malus, which is absolutely the cheapest bike that you're gonna find, simply because they sell them at Walmart, for some reason you have to modify that bottom bracket to make this kit fit. But most bikes are not going to have this issue. You're either going to have a 100mm or 120mm bottom bracket, and you just buy the kit that fits and you won't have to do any modifications. So if you have a different bike that has the right size bottom bracket, you can skip this part. So I'm going to put the time right here that you can skip to get past this section. One other thing that I want to consider is the chain alignment on this thing, because once we attach this here, or sorry, this, how does that compare to when this was on there? And just judging by it, looking at it right now, it actually looks really good. This is centered with the cassette. Let me bring you guys over here so you can see what I'm talking about. So if you look right down here, you can see that when this is in place, it's if you follow it straight back, it's basically going right to the middle of the cassette, which is exactly what you want. And that's not really what I was expecting, but I'm happy about it. So cool. The drive line, the chainring alignment is actually pretty good. But what's not great is that basically this side needs to go further through, because the pedals would basically be sticking out more on this side. Basically, your legs would be like more to one side while you're pedaling. So because of that, I actually do need to cut a little bit off of this side, and I'm worried that if I cut too much off, then the chainring was so close to the frame, it was sitting like this. If I cut too much off, it'll start hitting the frame right here. So I need to be very careful not to take too much off of the frame. But what is interesting is that the this is part of the bottom bracket that we took out, and it is 7 inches from one end to the other, and this one's a little harder to measure, so let's get it where I can kind of eyeball it. But this one is 7.5, so it's actually longer than the original one. I was kind of worried that because this is such a wide bottom bracket, that this was going to be shorter, and therefore the pedals would be closer together than what it was originally designed to do. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be the problem. So yeah, basically we need to cut a little bit off of this bottom bracket on the side that the pedals are going to go through. And Cypress is here to join the party. Hi, Cypress. yeah, basically I need to cut off from the side that the bottom bracket from the motor is going to slide through, and that should align everything a little bit better. So I got to do some measurements here, and I'll let you guys know what I decide. All right, so this is what I've come up with. This chainring can be mounted both ways. So I could put it facing outward, which moves the chain line out a little bit, which then allows me to move the motor further in. But the drive line, or the chain line, was perfect when I had it mounted like this. So basically what I can do is I can cut away the same difference that this makes up for, which I just measured to be 3/8 of an inch. Yes, 3/8 of an inch. So that's what I plan to cut off of the tube on the drive side, which will move everything over. And then these are the nuts that go on the other side. Let me move you guys over so you can see what I'm talking about. So on this side, this nut goes on like this. And then this one actually goes on the same thread over top of it, and they lock against each other. So, but right now there's only enough thread sticking out for one of them. So I think once I do the 3/8 of an inch, there's plenty of thread underneath here that's going to move it out, and that's, I think, going to put us in like the perfect position. So I just Googled it. 3/8 of an inch is 0.37 inches, and 10 millimeters is 0.39 inches. So actually that 3/8 of an inch is really close to the 10 millimeters, which is going to make this 110 millimeter bottom bracket basically be a 100 millimeter bottom bracket, which is exactly what this motor was designed for. It is interesting, however, though, that the extra tube that needs to be removed is all from one side. Not what I was expecting. I watched a video on this before, and this is exactly what they did, but they did not explain that, and it made it seem as though they were messing up the drive line. Turns out that's not the case. So if you're concerned about the drive line or the chain line or whatever the hell you're supposed to call it, I'm not a bike guy. If you're concerned about the alignment of that chain, taking off that 10 millimeters, that 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch, is exactly what you need to do off of the right side of the bike. So now we just got to figure out how to make that cut as smooth and straight as possible. This is the best way I've come up with that I can do this. So I'm gonna take my knife and I'm gonna score the paint with 3/8 of an inch. And I'm gonna do that at multiple points, going around the bottom bracket tube. And then I'm going to take this hose clamp and I'm going to clamp it on there to line up with those marks as a guide. And I'm going to take an angle grinder and cut it off. And I think that's probably the best way for me to get a nice straight line. So this is the setup right here. We got the hose clamp on there, lined up. Those are the marks right there, and I'm trying to account for the width of your average cutoff disc. And remember, You can always go back and cut more. But once you cut it off, you can't put it back. So I'm giving myself a little bit of extra wiggle room here. Perfect. The size is perfect, so let's just clean her up a little bit. Alright, so I'm just mocking things up just to get an idea of how it's all going to fit together. So the chain line looks okay. On this side, you'll notice there's a little gap right here. Not ideal, because that's supposed to line up with that. But because the chain line looks so good on this side, I don't necessarily want to move it in any further. Also keeping in mind the position of the pedals, where they're going to be. I think it's really good the way it is. So if I am going to trim anything else off, it's going to be off of this side, taking just a hair off of there. But I have a feeling that once I tighten this nut down really tight, there's basically some like little, I don't even know what to call them, but little teeth. And I'm hoping this will sort of press in and it'll take up some of that space. And if this needs to like bend a little bit to, you know, when it tightens down, I'm okay with that. So I'm going to tighten things down to see how it looks, but for the most part, let me spin a couple things here so you guys can see this. So it's going to be kind of hard to do, but since the derailleur doesn't really work, if I turn this and shift gears, as far over as I can, so this is the lowest gear, looking at the position of the chain, that's how close we're getting to the wheel if it's in this position. And when I flip the chain ring at the front, we're getting so close to that wheel that it's a little too close for comfort. So I think we're going to keep it just the way it is. But that said, there is always the option to turn that around if we need to. I've just put these 2 screws in here just to keep this little bracket in place so it doesn't shift around. But the kit comes with a tool specifically for this nut that comes with it. It fits. So let's see how tight we can get this. Get that nice and tight. Pretty tight, and well, I don't think it's really taken up any space with these, but I guess the biggest question of all is, does the next layer of the nut go on it? Because this definitely will bend if we need it to. I can already see it bending a little bit from tightening these screws. So we can get it nice and tight. That's not the concern. All right, so here's this other nut that goes on here. So it looks like we've got enough threads to work with that as well. And on the other side of this tool, there's a special grippiness for that piece. There we go. Nice and tight. Looks good. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Now I honestly just kind of want to put the pedals on and go ride it around even without hooking everything up. I just want to make sure that the gears function and that the chain rings in the right position and all that. All right, so you're gonna have to take the pedals off, move them to the new cranks, and just keep in mind that they go opposite directions. So your left pedal is going to go lefty tighty, righty loosey, and your drive side is going to be righty tighty, lefty loosey. So don't sit there cranking it the wrong direction. Anyway, pull that off and put that on here, and it's pretty simple. There's just this nut right at the base here, and this rotates. I may end up replacing these at some point, but knowing myself, I'm going to end up breaking them by accident anyway, so I'll just wait until that happens. I did the same on my other bike. I drove it into a cypress knee and snapped it off, including breaking one of my toes. So that wasn't fun, but knowing myself and how clumsy I am, I'll just do the same thing again. So anyway, just crank these down until they get to the end, nice and tight, and then you can put them on. So these are the screws that came with this thing. Not going to go too crazy because I don't know if I need to take this thing apart and cut off more of the bottom bracket. So just going to keep it relatively loose for the test drive. So far, so good. All right, so I just took it outside for a little test ride. I can't shift gears because this gear shifter sucks. So I'm stuck in the highest gear. Two things immediately stand out. One, I probably need to get a smaller chainring. So I went ahead and ordered a 36. This is a 46. So that's gonna give me a much different gear ratio. I'm not really concerned about going fast on this thing. I'm more concerned about having good torque so I can get through like muddy situations. So new chainring is coming. I've got a few different things that I've ordered. I've ordered new grips and I don't know, a few things. I don't even know at this point, but there's a bunch of things coming. But as far as it is right now, it is functional. So we're gonna put all the electronics on. We gotta mount the battery. We gotta put on the new brake levers because the ones that come with the kit have wires attached to them. These, not that one. Where are they? Here they are. They have wires attached to them, and they have triggers that basically let the computer know when we are braking so that it will prevent power from coming from the motor. So we got to put those on. We got to put the screen on, all kinds of things. So this is going to take a little bit of time. But as far as the motor mount, that was pretty simple, pretty easy. All right, so next up, we're going to have to mount the, this is the dock for the battery, and this is going to be mounted, oops, it's going to be mounted sort of right here on this bar Now there's 3 different holes that you can put bolts through to attach this. There's the 2 top ones here, and these the hole is 1/4 or a 1/4 inch hole, so 1/4 fit in there. And then there's a hole down here which is smaller. So this, I don't know what size bolt this is, but this hole down here is just in plastic, whereas these are in an aluminum plate. So the aluminum plate ones really are a lot stronger, but I do like the idea of the bottom being held in place. So I think I might put all 3 of them in. I think with the last build I did, I only put the top 2, which honestly I've been using for 6 years. So it's probably fine to not put that one in. I might just leave it out, actually, now that I think about it. But anyway, to install this, I've got 4-inch bolts, and the reason for that is because they have to go all the way through this this pipe. So we're gonna have to drill holes through it, which is gonna be interesting because this is steel. The other one I did was aluminum, so it's gonna be a lot harder to drill. And then once I've got them through, I'm gonna cut these bolts off so that you know, the nut just has enough threads to get all the way on there, and they won't be sticking out the bottom. All right, so we only get to do this once, so we need to make sure we do it right. And just so you guys know, you're gonna have to get your own bolts to attach this, and you want to just get some regular hex head bolts because the battery will slide over top of them. If you use say like Phillips head style bolts, it'll stick out too much. But see, right now the way it is, I can slide that into place, and I wasn't able to do that using some Phillips head ones. So anyway, now that I've got that, I want to figure out what placement I need on this thing. And this bike is a larger frame than the last one I built, so this should be relatively easy. Yeah, see, and I want it to be far enough down because you have to keep in mind you need to be able to slide the battery out. So it has to be able to come up a little bit and then pop out. So yeah, this frame has a lot more room than the last one I did, but I'm going to keep it nice and low here. It's going to keep my center of gravity low. It's going to make the ride better. So I want to make sure that when the battery is in place, that it's not going to hit the frame at the back here, but that it's nice and close. So about here. So I'm just going to hold my finger right there, and that's where the front screw is going to go. Now this is a very technical way of doing this. I'm going to grab my center punch here and say that's pretty well in the center of the pipe. We want to try and make a nice straight hole straight through. And mark that like so. And keep in mind that once we put these bolts in, there is still some wiggle room. We can move that little plate up and down a little bit. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We'll take the plate off. So now we know where that front one's going to be. So up here. And then the back one about there. Again, super technical measurements here. There we go. Alright y'all, when you are drilling through metal, especially steel, you want to use the right kind of drill bit for it. So I've got some cobalt steel bits here. They're made for drilling through metal, and we're going to use a little bit of WD-40 as lubrication when we start drilling. And we want to be careful. The first hole doesn't really matter, but coming out the back side, we need to be as careful as possible to get a nice straight hole going all the way through, because that's going to help keep that battery positioned where we want it. So well, that was pretty easy. Alright, this is the part where we put a little bit of oil in there. And we want to make sure we're going straight through. As perpendicular as we can get. Alright. That was actually significantly easier than I was expecting. Hey, that don't look, well, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look too bad. It's actually pretty darn straight. I can live with that. Heck yeah. Alright guys, we're back at it again, and I finally have all the parts that I needed to finish this build. So first up, I got a new chain ring. This is a 36 tooth chain ring that came directly from Varstrom. This is the same website that I got the kit from. And what's different about this is, as you can see, it's super thin because it does not have an offset. So the 46 tooth one that came with the bike, you can either put it facing inwards so it brings that chain line more towards the center of the frame, or you can flip it, brings it further to the outside. I think that just given by the way the chain line looks, I think this non-offset one is gonna be perfect for this particular frame. You might have to figure that out for your bike. Then I have a new kickstand. Let me show you this thing. I mentioned I wanted to get another kickstand because the one that's on there just isn't going to handle like muddy applications very well. This one is the same one that I have on another bike, and as you can see, the foot is really large, so it just gives it a lot more weight bearing capacity. It's also fully adjustable, so you can change the angle of the bike when it's sitting on the kickstand. Finally, I also got a new gear shifter. This again is the same one that I have on my other bike. I put this on as an aftermarket part on that bike. I really liked it. It's Shimano. It's really basic. It's got 7 gears on it. You move this lever to shift gears, and then you just tap this. It's spring loaded, and it brings it back to 7. So once I install that, because the one that was on here was trash, I'll be able to install the shift sensor. That's going to prevent the motor from powering while you're shifting gears. That's going to make your chain and your gears last a lot longer. And finally, the last piece that we're going to install, and this might be the most important piece, is this is I bought this from Rambo. If you're not familiar with Rambo, this is a e-bike manufacturing company. This is one of the heaviest duty bike racks that I could find, and honestly, it's really cheap. It's really good for the money. It's about $50 on their website. Now, typically, like on my last e-bike and some of the other e-bikes we've had, I have had Danny build me like a heavy-duty rack that's significantly wider than this. But I wanted to use something that any of you guys could use, so I got this for $50. And then Rambo also makes what they they call the rack platform. And this can be attached to the rack either sideways or long ways to give you a lot more space to work with on that rack. So this is actually going to be bigger than the rack that I have on my other bike, and these two pieces together was only $70, which is like really cheap, really good deal. So I'm excited to see how this works. You know, typically what we do, we will literally put entire deer sitting on the back of our racks and ride out with them. I think with this rack, that's not going to be a problem, and it may even be easier because it's going to be a lot easier to balance a deer sitting on the back of this. So those are the mods that we're going to do right now, and then at the end I will walk you through all the parts that are on this bike, and we'll count up how much I spent with this build. Let's get after it. All right, the test fit looks good. This is as far back as it goes, and it even has like a millimeter back there, but I'm probably gonna slide it up like a centimeter or so. So it's got room, but that'll do. All right, we have officially reached the part where we're gonna strip down the handlebars, and we are gonna replace all the hardware up here. We're getting the new brake levers that came with the bike. And we're getting rid of this thing. A new one should be on its way. We're just gonna strip it down for now and start running wires. All right, this is the stage I'm at, guys. It's not really much to show here. I'm basically just running the wires. And the design on this bike is kind of silly. See the wires, they come out the bottom of the motor. I would have thought it would make more sense for them to come out the top so they're not like, you know, hitting stuff. But so what I wanted to do is I wanted to just make them immediately come up and out of the way. So I'm actually running them between this little bracket here, so they immediately are up and out of the way from the bottom, and I can zip tie them to the stem here and keep all these connections as high as possible, since I will probably be riding this thing through some water and stuff like that. But anyway, it comes with this little wiring harness. These are all the connections for the brake lines, the computer up front. So all that goes over there. This one right here with, there's a little cap hiding back here I gotta pull through. This is the speed sensor, which goes off of the wheel, and there's another part that comes with it. That's gonna mount right here. Then I've got a shift sensor, which I'm gonna mount on the other side. I believe this is the shift sensor. This is the light right here. This is for the headlight. So basically all I'm doing right now is like literally just running all these wires, and I'm gonna use zip ties to just run the wires along the frame so everything is neat and tidy. So I'll show you what that looks like when I'm done with it. All right, we are getting there. Well, we're pretty much done actually. Okay, so I've got all the wires. Let me show you what I've done. So like I said, running most of the wires up here. This is the light wire. This is the harness that goes up front. That's all these wires here. You can see I've got the two brake lines hooked up and the screen. And this one right here by its lonesome, this is for the throttle. But here in Florida, we're not allowed to have a throttle on there, or at least if we want it to be a class 1 e-bike. This is the power here. Basically what I did is I wanted to run all these cables up so that these connections are going to be as high up as possible. That way, if I do run through water, those connections are not going to be exposed to it. The only one I still have down here that's not connected, that is the shift sensor, which I have right here. So I have the shift sensor here, but I'm not going to install it yet because the gear shifter that I had is broken and I'm waiting on a new one. So once I get the new one, I'll install that one and show you guys how to do it. But yeah, and then here, this right here is the speed sensor. So you can see there's this little metal piece attached to the spoke, and then this is the sensor here. And basically as that thing goes by, it tells this thing that the wheel has made 1 revolution, which then tells the computer how fast you're going. All right, y'all, so the first thing you're going to want to do to install the shift sensor is you're going to pull out the old shift cable. This is the one that was on there, and it's actually rusted all the way through. That's probably a problem I'm going to have to address at some point. It seems like the way that this shift cable runs, there seems to be like there's like a little bit of a divot right down here. So the way it comes through, it kind of has like a little bit of a divot. And so I think when moisture gets in there, it kind of pools up there, probably causes it to rust. So I'll need to make sure that I lubricate that or spray some WD-40 in there regularly. So anyway, you're gonna pull the old cable out, and then before you run the new cable through, you're actually gonna need to cut the housing for the cable. And so I've done that here. You can see this is the piece that goes to the derailleur right there. And I cut it right here along this, I don't know what part of the frame that is, but this piece of the frame. And that's because I'm going to mount the shift sensor right there, and it's going to go in between that break on the cable. So now we're going to feed the cable through. I'm going to set you guys down right here. And this might be a little bit of a pain in the butt the first time you do it. You may have to, like after you make the cut, you might have to kind of squeeze that end of the cable to make sure that it's that the hole is open enough to allow that cable to come through, which I already did on this one, so you can see it coming through right there. So I'm just going to grab that, pull that tight, and we're just going to hang this on the handlebars for now. We'll deal with that later. All right, so once you cut your cable housing, I have some of these extra caps. I just have a kit which has like extra cable and like these caps. So we're gonna run one of those caps over the cable. And that's just to cover up the end and make it a little neater. All right, and then here's the shift sensor. We're gonna make the cable come out towards the motor because it's got to plug in over there. And there's gonna be a hole on one side. On the cable side, we're gonna put that cable right through there. You can feel there's like a wheel inside of there, and that is the sensor, and then that should slot right in there perfectly. And then we're going to take another one of those caps, put that on the other side of the cable facing the other way, because this time it's got to go into the shift sensor backwards like that. So then we're going to run this cable through the cable housing, pop it out the other side. I'm going to go in through here, come out that way, and something like that. I don't know if, yeah, you know, I'll probably zip tie this in place. But that is essentially the setup. Once this part is hooked up, I haven't tightened that down yet. We're gonna run the shift sensor cable where we want it to go, which I'm gonna have to zip tie it in place somewhere here. Something like this. It's gonna go, I think I'm gonna have it go over. Have a little cover on here right now, just to protect it. Not that I used it, but I thought about it. So I'm going to connect that here. All right, like so. I just got to run some zip ties on this side. Get this to stay in place where I want it to be, and then we be Gucci, as the kids be saying. Perfect. All right, everybody, this is the bike finished. Check it out in all of its glory. So this bike's been finished for a couple of months now. I wanted to make sure that it was working well and that I didn't put this video out to help you guys create a dud. It is not a dud. It is awesome. I've really been enjoying it. I've hunted with it a bunch, and I've actually already carried a whole deer out on the back of this thing, and it worked perfectly. So let's talk about what I actually spent putting this thing together. So first, we picked up a bike on Facebook Marketplace for $200. There's plenty of bikes out there that you can find in that price range, so it's not unreasonable for you to get one around the same price. Then I spent $586 on the conversion kit with a 13 amp hour battery. You can get better, bigger batteries for more money, but sort of the entry level is going to be your 13 amp hour. And honestly, it's a lot of battery. It'll get you a lot of miles in the woods, and I don't think you really need much more than that. Then we've got the back rack. This cost me $70 from Rambo's website. We've got the seat. This is a $35 seat. It is a Cloud 9 seat. They're just super comfortable. It's not necessary, but I just really like them. Then we've got these grips. I wanted to get some nice ergonomic grips. They were like $15. And we've got the gear shifter was $8. And we've got a kickstand that was another $12 or $13. Oh, and the fender kits. We've got these fender kits on here. They were $50. So when you add everything up, you're still in it for around $1,000, a little less than $1,000. I will say one thing I do want to add is a front suspension fork, which is going to cost me about $100. So add $100 to that. But again, it's not necessary. It works fine like this. It's just a really comfortable ride when you have that. So anyway, the coolest part about this, I guess, is that if you wanted to buy an e-bike, like a retail e-bike, you're not going to find a mid-drive bike for less than $2,000. So literally building it yourself, and you saw how easy it was. It wasn't that difficult. You could save at least $1,000 doing it this way. So hopefully this video inspires you. And if it does, please, drop a comment. Let me know how you did, how it worked out for you. If you did anything different that you think people might benefit from knowing, let us all know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, tell your friends about it. If you have any friends that are thinking about getting an e-bike, tell them about this video. This might help them get over that hurdle if they're, if they just don't have the money. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next video.